In this lesson, you learn 3 ways to play walking bass lines on guitar. Now, a lot of guitarists out there think that a walking bass is something only a bass player would do. But the truth is, on the guitar, we can not only groove like the bass, we can add the harmony of the chords for a full, rich sound. And the best part, it's way easier to do than you think. So here's the plan. First, I'm going to take you through the simple chord progression we'll use throughout the lesson for building our walking bass lines over. Then I'll take you through step by step each of the 3 approaches we're going to use for building the walking bass lines using scales, arpeggios, and chromatic approaches. And then finally, we'll add the chords for a nice full sound. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll have 3 go-to walking bass strategies that sound incredible on any song. I'm Simon Candy. I've been teaching guitar for over 30 years, and if you want more lessons like this one, then be sure to hit subscribe. All right, let's get to it. So for our progression today, we're going to use an 8-bar blues in the key of G. So it's going to be 2 bars on a G7. It's going to be 1 bar on C7 before returning to G7 in bar 4. Then we go to the 5 chord in bar 6, back to the 4 chord, and then to the 1 chord, and back to a D7 in bar 8. So let's kick things off here with the first approach, which is using root notes and fifths. So I think the best thing I can do here is probably play you the walking bass line first using this approach, and then we'll come back and break it down, bringing some understanding to what is going on. So that's our first approach there, using roots and fifths with some chromaticism. And there's basically one of 2 things happening at any given time here. So in the first bar, we're playing a root note, we're playing the 5th of the chord, being the D, because we're over the G here in bar 1 of our blues. So a root, 5th, root, and then we're stepping down a half step, that's the chromatic neighbor tone, to again then come back to the root of the G and to descend down the same way we went up. The next chord coming up is C. So we've got to approach that, and we can approach it here by a half step below, or we could go a half step above, as long as we land on the C on the first beat when that chord comes in bar 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's the idea. And then when I'm on that C, I'm going to use this second approach, which is really just hitting the root, going a half step below, coming back to the root, half step below, and back to the root of the G. And that takes care of almost the first half of the blues, right? It's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And when we get to G, same deal, up the root, the 5th, the root, and then half step below. And this time, instead of going this way to get to C, it's D that's coming up. So we get to the root of the D chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, and on D, 2, 3. It's the same deal we had on the C here. It's just the chord tone, the root note on 1, chromatic on 2, back to the root, chromatic on 4, but this time coming down to C because C's in our next bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4, same thing on C, and then back to the G, and then we repeat this sort of approach of going root, 5th, root, then we go a half step above to target the D in bar 8, the last bar here, and on here we play the root to the 5th below, back to the root, chromatic tone to connect to G. Now we're on guitar here, so we can add chords to our walking bass. So once you've got that going well, and do spend some time on that first, we could add chords, and the easiest way to begin is just to play the corresponding chord that you're on at the time on the first beat of the bar. So instead of just playing the root note on the first beat of the bar or where the chord change is, we're going to hit a full chord and continue with the bass line. So that'd sound like this with this particular approach. So So that was using just the chord on the beat, on the first beat. But we can hit the chord more than once throughout the bar with our walking bass line, and we can play off the beats as well. So we get a little bit more of a syncopated feel, and it sounds a little bit more interesting and more musical. So let me give you an example of doing that with this approach here with the roots and fifths and chromatics. Okay, approach 2, we're going to step things up a little bit, add a little bit more of a melodic flavor to our walking bass lines by using arpeggios. So same chord progression, but from each root note, I will extend an arpeggio, and there will be some chromaticism in there as well. So let me play through this approach for you first, and then we'll come back and break it down. Okay, so that's using arpeggios, and it's quite simple really. All we're doing is from the root note of the chord, we're extending an arpeggio, the first, the third, and the fifth of the chord in question. So the first chord is G7, the first, third, and fifth is the G, the B, and the D. Then we need to approach the root note of the next chord by a half step below. So the next chord in the next bar is G. So I approach the G note, so same chord, but I still approach that root note of the G by a half step below, and I'm going to go for the root note an octave higher. So I've worked my way up there. 1, 2, 3, then the chromatic into the root of the next chord, which is G still on beat 1, and then I simply come down the arpeggio here. Okay, coming down, and then I'm going to come back, or I'm going to come to that fifth there and resolve into the C in bar 3. So I descended down the arpeggio here, and then I chose to use the D again before coming into the C. And we go up the arpeggio. The next chord is G, so let's go half step up and then come into the G note there, because on our C arpeggio we finish on the fifth, which is a G note. G is the note we're targeting for the next chord in the next bar, so we go a half step above, and then we're back on G. And we can descend that arpeggio again, and this time I use a little chromatic note into the fifth there, and this is setting us up for the second half. Once we're on the D, we're descending an arpeggio. This is the root, the fifth, the third, then we're looking for C, so the fourth beat, let's play the chromatic above the C to then coincide with the C chord change, and then we do a similar little descending arpeggio, half step into G, so G arpeggio, and then back to this descending D, and then we'll resolve into the G. And then of course, like the first approach, we can add our chords in here. And again, let's start by just putting them on the first beat of each bar very straight, so we can just get them in place, and then we can play around with it a little bit more rhythmically. So that would sound like this. Okay, but that sounds a little straight. We can make it sound much more musical by syncopating that. So let's listen to how that would sound now. And our third approach is using scale. So this is really going to smooth out our walking bass lines even further, giving us more options when creating these weaving lines between the chords of our progressions. So let me play it for you first, and then we'll come back and we'll break it down. So if we break this one down, you'll see that we start from the G, and then I'm working my way up the scale. Okay, and then I get to the fifth of the chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I come back down the scale. So that's taking up the first bar of G, then we can get the second bar of G, then on the fourth beat of the second bar, it's all about approaching this C note, and I'm going to do it from a tone above, which is a scale tone again, to come into that C chord. And then we work up the scale of C, C, D, E. Then the next note is all about getting back to this G, so I'm going to play the F sharp and get our G root note there. So again, that first little part, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, to the C, working up the scale, to the G, and then we descend down the scale. But again, it's only one bar, so the first three notes are down the scale, then chromatic passing tone to get to the root of the D in bar 5, and then we continue down the scale for D, then approach the C by a tone above. When we get to C, down the scale of C, and then half step into the G. And when I get to G, I'm going to use some chromaticism here. So a little bit different here, going from the root to the third and then moving up the scale, but adding the chromatic passing tone, which is fine because it's on the fourth beat, to resolve into the D, which is in the last bar, and we continue to climb up the scale and approach the G to resolve from a half step above. As we have with the previous approaches, let's add the chords in now, and let's start by just playing the chord on the beat. And that would sound like this with our scale approach. That's playing the chord on the beat. Sounds okay. It's actually harder for me to do that because I never play it like that, but it's good to start like that, and then we can separate the bass from the chord a little bit, add some chord hits in there. So let's have a listen to our example here with the syncopation added in. And finally, let's combine these ideas together, because in reality, when you look at walking bass lines, you'll find there's typically a combination of approaches happening at any given time, from roots and fifths to arpeggios to scale-like motion. So let me give you an example of that. I'll play through this again first so you can hear it. It's going to combine these ideas, and then we'll come back and we'll just have a look at what we've been doing and what I've done here in this particular arrangement. So that's it. I'm using a few different approaches there that we've been looking at today. If you look at the G, I'm just simply walking up the scale to the fifth of the chord, back down the scale. So a little bit of chromaticism there between the fourth and fifth of the scale, and then down, and then a half step above the C, which then is using this chromatic approach through the scale again to get to G. Then I shift approach here to the root, fifth, root, then half step to get into D, and then I do the stepping in and out of the root note by a half step below, then down into C, where I do the root, fifth, root combination, but the fifth is now below the root of the chord, and then step a half step into G, then I'm going up the scale like I did in the first bar, and then coming down the D and resolving to G. So let's have a listen to that with some syncopation now. I'll just throw the chords in, I'll syncopate them, we won't worry about playing them on the first beat, just to hear the full effect here, and this will give you a bit of a summary of what we've been looking at today. If If you love the sound of these walking bass lines, but you struggle with finger picking, then I've got a free ebook for you called Quick Start Finger Picking, 5 Simple Ways to Sound Great Fast. Inside, you'll find 5 easy hacks that will have your finger picking sound impressive right away. No boring drills or exercises, just music that works. Each tip comes with video examples so you can see and hear everything in action. It's the perfect way to build solid finger picking technique, making things like the walking bass lines we had a look at in today's video much easier to play. So click the link in the description below and download your free copy of Quick Start Finger Picking today. If you like this lesson, then hit subscribe and ring the bell. That way you won't miss the next one. And if you want to go deeper into walking bass lines, then check out the video on your screen right now, where I demonstrate and break down famous songs that use walking bass lines, such as 8 Days a Week by the Beatles and Hey Joe by Jimi Hendrix. I'm Simon Candy. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.